Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. This is an absolutely absurd decision from a judge in the case of the Terrebonne riding in the federal election. If you don't remember, the Terrebonne riding was a Quebec federal riding that the Liberal Party won by one vote. And I am not saying in this video that a close election requires a by election to decide who really won. People can sometimes win by one vote. There are famous cases where we've had razor thin elections where one candidate beat the other by a handful of votes or even sometimes just one vote. But this riding absolutely needed a redo because the only reason the Liberal candidate won by a single vote may have been, and when I say may have been, it's an extremely strong likelihood because Elections Canada put the wrong returning address on the mail in ballot envelopes. And so a bunch of people who wanted to vote for the Bloc Québécois even came out after the election saying, I sent in a ballot and it was bounced back to me because Elections Canada messed up and it gave me the wrong returning address. But according to a judge, that really doesn't matter. Right here, it's an article from the CBC. It is translated from French, so if there's any awkward wordings, that's probably the reason why. This article headline, the headline reads, "The federal election in Terrebonne will not be repeated." Voters in the federal riding of Terrebonne will not have to return to the polls, the Superior Court has ruled. The Bloc Québécois, which contested the result due to a postal code error, will be able to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. Lawyers for the Liberal Party of Canada and Bloc Québécois clashed last week at the St. Jerome courthouse to debate whether or not to rerun the vote in the Terrebonne riding following a postal code error. Outgoing MP Natalie Sinclair Desgage, I don't know how to read French. Desgage is my best guess. Sorry, guys. Contested the election result and demanded a rematch. After a judicial recount, her Liberal opponent Tatiana Augusti won with a majority of just one vote. After 3 days of hearings, the court concluded that the error in question does not constitute grounds for contesting the election. What can you contest an election over then? What if somebody literally runs into the polling station with a bunch of fake ballots and just dumps them into the ballot box right there? Like, what kind of insane errors would be allowed if that's not if Elections Canada giving the wrong information to people for voting, causing them to not have their votes counted, doesn't count as something worth rerunning an election in? Because I can't tell you if the mail-in votes that bounce back were more Liberal or more Bloc Québécois, and within one vote, that's a pretty big assumption to be making that it doesn't really matter. It's just a minor little error, and it could have gone either way, so let's just let whoever won. It's like, well, we don't know if they won. That's the problem. Again, outside of obvious fraud, outside of one side being caught red-handed, like stuffing ballot boxes, what would the court actually decide to rerun a race for? This is a great quote. Quote, this was a human error, as sometimes happens in general elections, committed inadvertently and without any dishonest or malicious intent. This error in no way affects the integrity of the Canadian electoral system, in which citizens can still have confidence. You know what? I have no problem with the Canadian electoral system. I have a problem with the court system right now. Because, yes, errors can happen inadvertently. And by the way, when some errors inadvertently happen in an election this close, you rerun it. When it affected more ballots than the person who won by, let it go again. Why? What? If there's obviously issues that affect that are within the margin of victory, we should probably be looking at that. And this is just such a hand wave away issue. And it's almost like they're kind of saying, like, well, if you don't accept this decision, it's almost like you believe in 2020 style election denial from the US. What? Just accept the decision. And I'm happy that the Bloc Québécois looks like it is going to be appealing this to the Supreme Court, because why wouldn't you? This is just basically the theft of a seat. The Liberals did not earn the seat properly, and so it should be reran. And it's the theft of a seat not by the Liberals. It's not like they did any shenanigans to get this to happen. It's Elections Canada being incompetent and the judge saying, who cares if there's incompetence? It happens sometimes. Okay, It happens sometimes, and in those times we rerun the election if it affects the outcome. It says the court was seized following a complaint from a voter in the riding who claims to have voted for the Bloc Québécois, but who had her mail-in ballot returned 4 days after the election because of an address error on the envelope provided by Elections Canada. Counting this vote would make the result a tie. The Superior Court of Quebec ruled that it would be unreasonable to annul the election in Terrebonne, even if it were to assume that the error constituted an irregularity. That had an impact on the result of the vote since the voter was not permanently prevented from voting. What the heck? Yeah, they were. They were permanently prevented from voting because they thought that they had voted, and Elections Canada just kind of bumbled it, and they didn't get notified that, oh, yeah, your vote's not actually going to count. You had to go do it again until 4 days after the election. This is stupid. It goes on to say this: no harm to the integrity of the electoral system. Like, what kind of quote is that? Yes, there's harm. When you mess up something this badly, there is harm. Sorry. Oh my goodness, I hate when I lose my place like this. Quote, she had means at her disposal to ensure that her vote reached its destination, which she did not use, the court said in its 33-page decision. The voter could have gone to the polling station and voted in person on election day. The court continued before adding that election day, April 28th, 2025, of the right to vote. Like, what? This is where the French probably mixes with the thing a bit, where I'm translating from French to English, so the words might not be accurate. Well, she could have technically just voted in person. Okay, that doesn't change the fact that she was effectively accidentally defrauded by Elections Canada by saying, hey, do you want to mail in a ballot? It's a perfectly legitimate way of voting, just like walking into in person. She does it, she fills out properly, and she sends it back. And the only mistake that was made was Elections Canada giving her the wrong return address. So a voter's just supposed to assume that the return address is going to be completely wrong, and the court's going to let them off the hook, the Elections Canada off the hook, and they don't have to rerun the election because, you should assume people could have messed it up and you should have just voted in person. Then don't have mail-in. Then don't have all these other ways of voting through provisional ballot and whatnot. It's so stupid, as I am saying. And this riding matters a lot because the Liberals do not have, are very, very close to having a majority. Them losing an extra seat actually does give parties like the NDP more power. It makes it harder for the Liberals to get to a majority to pass legislation. Yes, the NDP tends to vote as a bloc, the bloc tends to vote as a bloc, and the Liberals only need one of those parties or the other to support them on stuff. But there are going to be votes where they can't get the bloc on board, and Elizabeth May doesn't really add much to the equation if she votes with the Liberals, and oftentimes she actually does oppose them. And if the NDP are divided on an issue, it could be that the Liberals don't just need 3 votes to pass something, they need 4 if Terrebonne goes to the Bloc Québécois, which could make very contentious pieces of legislation much more difficult to pass. Oh my goodness. It's obvious that this should be just redone. It's within one vote. There are dozens and dozens of votes that this theoretically had affected, probably more like hundreds of votes that this had affected. So why not rerun it? Oh, well, it could have gone either way. Well, that's why we rerun it. I don't know that the bloc would have won if all the mail-in ballots were counted correctly, but because we don't know, that's why we rerun it. It's so foolish. Anyways, so that should be it for this video, guys. I didn't want to make a big deal about this one. I will be back on another day to talk about stuff in British Columbia, including the polling that's going on right now, the approval ratings of David Eby and John Rustad, or really more so everyone's disapproval ratings, because every single leader in the province has a negative approval rating right now, including my own leader, Dallas Brody. But hey, she's new, so it's hard to get people to really like you, and the only thing people will have heard in the media mostly is that you're a bad person. And even then, she's still actually just middle of the pack in terms of all 5 or 6 leaders that were talked about. I'll be back to talk about the macro numbers, regionals, all that stuff. So, stay tuned for that. And if you guys are already subscribed, I just want to make more of a point of saying, make sure you hit the notification bell so that every time I make a video, it's right next to the subscribe button. Whenever I make a video, it just pops up in your notifications to let you know I have one out there. It's not going to buzz and make a sound or anything like that. I don't believe it does. But every time you're on the YouTube app, it'll just show you a little one or a little dot next to your notification bell at the top, showing that there is a video from a creator that you're following that's just been released. Anyways, but with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys all later.